Hi, this is Emily with Pixel Breakdown, and today I have two of the devs, or possibly the two devs of Both Good.
We had some other people helping us, but yeah, basically
Oh,
we were
okay.
the ones full time on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So part of the Both Good group. Do you want to give an introduction on yourselves and what Goo Goo Grapplers is?
Yeah. I'm Justin. I'm the head game designer. I also do operations for Both Good, as well as a lot of like marketing materials and stuff like that. Because my background is actually in video editing and not video games, but life takes you many places. Yeah. And then
I'm Luca. I am the lead programmer at Both Good right now, and I was the lead programmer for Goo Goo Grapplers, and I'm the visual art director and was the visual art director at Goo Goo Grapplers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so y'all do like a bunch of different things, like wear many hats, sort of, right?
That we
exactly.
have to, right? So,
Yeah.
and a lot of it was just figured out throughout the process because we were making it, and it's like something needs to get done, but one of us needs to do it. So
Yeah.
let's see who can do that.
Definitely a lot of finding our roles as we went. But
there was a lot more overlap also at the beginning. I remember like you were doing some dev stuff.
Yeah.
And then we were like, what is actually the thing that will make us finish this faster?
Yeah.
And so we found that if we each do our own thing and just combine it at the end, that'll
for sure. But yeah, in our game, Goo Goo Grapplers, is kind of like we've kind of jokingly called it like baby's first MOBA a couple times. But it takes a lot of influence from different MOBA games, but then lives in kind of the like twin stick shooter arena brawler kind of. What?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's like a much easier to pick up and like know how to move around and use your abilities. But then you still got your basic like fundamentals of sort of the arc that MOBA might play, because again, one thing we like a lot is just the feeling of like becoming really, really strong by the end of it, which a lot of like roguelikes do, or like other kind of games like that. So yeah, that was a key focus.
I think that's great.
Yeah. I was gonna say if there's any other ways you would describe it's kind of goofy.
We called it a mini MOBA for a while.
Yeah.
We're not sure if that's all we wanted to call it. Or, but it is. It's a mini MOBA. It's a 1v1 MOBA, right?
Yeah.
1 versus 1 is a key part of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the concept behind your game. Just everything about it. When I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is great. Very excited to like learn more. So first I want to ask about the studio. So is there like an origin story for Both Good? How did it come to be as a studio?
We did not plan for it to start at all. And I think we'll end up probably touching back on some of this and the repercussions of it. But when we started Goo Goo Grapplers, or sometimes we call it GGG. So if we say GGG, it means Goo Goo Grapplers. But when we started GGG, we didn't have any big plans for it at all. It was just a game that I was making in my room, and Justin was in his room, and I was like, do you want to help out with this? And we just started working more and more on it. And all of a sudden, we were so immersed in Goo Goo Grapplers. I was fresh out of grad school, so I didn't have a job yet, or was about to start my teaching job at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we ended up working so much on it that it was like, should we just try?
I mean, and also once we were talking about how to go about releasing it and like looking to how it all works on Steam, it was like, oh, this would make more sense if we technically made like an LLC or something to be able to like put the game out through. And just as it went more and more, and as we've also had some people like help work on it and stuff, it just kind of made sense to like go into a studio, and we were sort of committed to see the project through, and we're already starting to talk about like future projects. And then even before that, before I even started working on it, there was like a much earlier prototype that the summer before, because you were still finishing your grad program, which was in like game design essentially.
The summer before, I mean, I was halfway through my.
Yeah, you were in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But there was a earlier prototype that he was making with his brother that was kind of a whole different game.
Completely different.
There was kind of a similar base concept of having like a mix of strategy and combat, and like babies in it, but it was a very different thing.
More like a tower defense type thing.
Yeah.
Mixed with, we never actually finished it, so it was a mess. But yeah, it was all just a very unorganized beginning that ended up just snowballing into it makes sense to make a studio right now. So that's kind of how Both Good started. The name also took so long.
Any story behind the name?
He kind of. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I didn't even realize we spent literally like, I mean, there's other stuff we were working on at the time, but there was like 2 or 3 days where it was like, we got to figure out a name. And we went through like so many different things.
They were horrible.
And we were just kind of finding stuff that sounded good. You said Both Good at some point. I was like, oh, that's great. I love how that sounds. It's like positive energy and kind of like a lot of while we were designing, like coming up with ideas like, oh, well, these are both like good ideas. So I don't know. I didn't know where he was coming from. But then
it was a meme.
It was a reference to a meme,
yeah, like a monkey gorilla meme.
Yeah, which is just, I mean, like really simply.
You can cue it in now. In the intro.
Yeah, I will. I was already thinking that.
Yeah, we'll send it. I mean, it's just like a gorilla and orangutan like arguing online, and one's like, "Oh, like
Babana is better than coconut."
Yeah, and then basically like the Chad gorilla is like, both good. Yeah. Like, and I guess it just stuck. But I had agreed to it before I even knew it was a reference to the random meme.
I love that. I love that meme so much. I mean, that's why our guy is kind of a monkey.
Yeah, he's sort of a Sasquatch. Sort of
I don't know what he is, but
something. Yeah.
He's a big thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree, though. I think the name is a really interesting one. And it's nice that, I can see the tie to like the meme, but then also like when you're discussing stuff, it's like, well, those are both good ideas. So I see that too.
It honestly has helped us so much with just like, if we need to find a solution and both good, it's just, you can just pick any of them. You can just pick any single.
Yeah, not always.
Not always, but if we land on both good, it means you can usually go either.
There end up kind of being a lot of decisions you make while game deving that feel like they're super important, where like it might not be. Like we were talking earlier about like, oh, should we have this in this folder or this folder to organize it? And we're like, there honestly will make zero impact on like the actual game itself, so let's just do this one, like, and not get hung up on it. So it kind of comes back as a joke often to be like, oh, both good, but it actually has helped us in our process.
Yeah, it does happen accidentally a lot.
But the idea of a MOBA brawler where like babies duke it out is great. That's like the one thing I can think when I think of it is just like, this is great. This needed to be made. Like, where did the idea come from though? Because now when I even see like 2 kids, I'm like, I wonder which one would come out on top, you know?
It was, this often gets asked, I think particularly because a lot of people either love it or hate it. And I don't know.
Like just the theming in general.
And we've never gotten like a particular. I mean, someone has hated it, but like they never have a reason. It's just I don't like it. That they're
just babies.
It's baby. I don't like.
Is it for babies? Like no, but
the actual origin, I just remember because we tend to say that it was from just that's the theming that we did for the original prototype that we mentioned before, but now I thought back to the prototype and how that started. And why it ended up being a baby. And it was because I was really into procedural animation at the time, or it was like the first time I was interfacing with any procedural animation type stuff. And a lot of the beginner procedural animation stuff that you make are quadrupedal things just because there's more going on. And so I was like, okay, let me try to make this 2D quadrupedal thing that is distorting a sprite, and it kind of looked like a baby crawling. So it was just like an orange blob, and the orange stood true until the very end. But it looked like either a turtle or a baby, and we kind of just made it a baby at the time, and so it's stuck.
And then it just was kind of funny and charming, and it was kind of hard to like let go of the character. And then the name was thought of Goo Goo Grapplers, even again for that old prototypes, and we were just like, oh no, that's great. Like
it's great.
It works.
But
like
they don't really grapple that much anymore. They used to grapple.
Yeah. they do have, there is like a grab ability, but
there used to be a lot more grappling in initial prototypes, but we just stuck with it. Thinking of grapplers as synonymous to fighters or warriors or whatever.
I see. Yeah. Babies don't even really know how to crawl proper. So I could see like your first animations looking like, a baby. But yeah, I was wondering if it was like how did you, like, were you babysitting and then you thought of them like duking it out? But I guess yours is more like probably, yours makes sense too, the actual story.
It did help that like I've got a younger nephew. Actually, I have another nephew now who was born almost right after Goo Goo Grapplers was finished and we released it. So
I don't know his name. What's his name?
Oliver.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I was definitely like thinking about my nephews a lot, and some abilities or passives and stuff in the game. I was reminded of just like hanging out with my nephew when he was a baby and stuff like that happening. But it did mostly just come from the process of kind of landing on it as a theme. But then afterwards, I was like, oh right, like
I just love,
there's a lot to work with babies.
I love that for a lot of the research that you were doing, or like the game development that you were doing, you were just like,
I was watching Rugrats.
I was like looking up baby stuff. I like what do babies use?
What do babies use it too? And like it was kind of a fun like research period for figuring out how to get everything to fit on team. And I feel like it led to a lot of interesting ideas, because it's not like, I don't know, you aren't often like looking at how can I gamify like a blanket or a stuffed animal.
It gives you ideas, because you can from the theme you get, like, you think of Sticky Hand and how kids use. We do have a lot of
it's like toddler.
It's toddler. we have stuff that babies don't necessarily use. It's more like kids. But if you think of, okay, what's a toy? Sticky Hand, and you're like, okay, well, that has a functionality to it. And it informs your game design by just thinking about the actual object and be like, oh wow, this could totally be an ability in the game. And it's just an idea that we might previously not have had. Just become, I mean, Sticky Hand is a common type of ability in MOBAs, but
the get over here,
get over here type thing. But anyways, it's really nice when the theme informs your game design, and it's not expected.
Yeah, I agree. Like a lot of MOBAs, you can tell that their designs pull inspiration from like common like themes, right? Yeah. And like this one is one where it's like, no, I have never seen a MOBA that is baby themed and like with baby items. So I just think it's great. Not to like, I still have like a big appreciation for like the MOBAs that, pull inspiration from stuff, but just seeing something like wacky like this getting made, I think is great. It speaks to like indie dev for sure. Because I don't know if like a big publisher would be like, yes, babies, but it's great. And it's great seeing it made.
Yeah, when we were talking to a friend of ours who was at the time had more experience, or still does have more experience in the gaming industry, his main concern at the beginning of this project was, does babies sell? Like, is that because I feel like that is what a publisher would think of, is like, is this
it's the first thing.
Not all publishers, but it's like it's the thing, right? It's baby. You think babies.
And they typically look at what's sold before, and then they don't try and deviate too much from that, because right. I bet you probably had some really sketchy searches too, like does baby sell or like things like that, where it's like, oh, we should word this a little to where we don't end up on a list.
Yeah, my Google history definitely thought I was having a kid or something. Just like didn't know what I was doing. Just because like, what do babies what like do? What is like, oh yeah, like tummy time. Like I don't know.
So the game is described as like a hybrid between like a MOBA and a brawler. Like, what does that mean to y'all for the game? And how did you approach merging these?
Yeah. Well, kind of again going back on it, starting without like a grand plan. We sort of were joking that like two games that we play a lot together as friends, like is
A lot.
is like Super Smash Bros. Super fun, great time. And then Heroes of the Storm, which is a MOBA that is not super popular. It's the Blizzard one.
It should be.
But it's great, honestly.
It should be
it's a great
popular.
time. And we were just like, is there any way to, I think for a lot of devs when they're starting, they see a game they like and they're like, oh, I want to make my version of that. And in part, we were following a similar trope where we're like, is there any way to combine these two very different genres? And there is some stuff of like, what is it, Awesome Knots?
Awesome Knots is the 2D.
It's the
but it's
2D
a platformer.
It's a platformer
MOBA.
and a MOBA, and we were just like, yeah, there's no, I don't know, like we were thinking originally platform fighter or something, and then the prototype had like the whole shield grab attack dynamic.
Because we started more Smash, we started with a bigger balance, but we ended up having more MOBA.
But then taking away the elements of like, okay, well, why is Smash fun? It's in part because one, like anyone can kind of pick up and play it and start to have that, and like you've got this couch experience that's really great. It's normally really social, kind of goofy, you're joking, having fun. And we were like, MOBAs don't have that. You're generally, I mean, you can have all your friends on Discord and stuff like that and have a good time.
It's grindy,
but it can be really grindy. The stereotype is it's kind of antisocial. Like,
well, whenever
like
we
that.
tried to get like our roommate Zach, to play with us, and he doesn't want to be grinding that game. He hates it. It's so inaccessible.
There's such a learning curve. If you go on it, these often have like kind of toxic reputations for, your team's going to yell at you and stuff. And we're like, okay, well then kind of the element we want to have is it be like kind of more fun, social, like because again, the 1 versus 1 isn't just because it's also like you have that, and we saw this with a lot of play testing too. If like one person has played and the other hasn't, there's like you give tips to each other. It becomes a lot less frustrating. Like there's a lot of rage that can happen in MOBAs. It's just like, oh no, we're babies having fun. It's cute. And like, but you still get to engage with these concepts, and it can get sweaty. It has for sure, but you're in the same room with your opponent, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. So. Again, the Smash Hots is kind of where it started. It ended up somewhere else, of course, but that's how things go.
I think that's a great approach, like looking at a game and being like, let's break down even further than mechanics, like what do we like about the game and the experience, and then how do we want to either push for that in our game or like navigate away from that.
I mean, really that feeling of playing with, I mean, because we do this a lot, just playing on the couch, like against each other. Well, like try-harding at the same time as just trying to do like something that's clearly suboptimal.
Try to do it cool for fun.
Try to do it cool because you're right there with each other. You can get live reactions of that kind of stuff. That like definitely inspired a lot of what we were trying to see people doing as they were playing Goo Goo Grapplers. It's like roommates having fun, friends having fun on the couch.
Yeah, I think one of this is kind of a tangent, but one of the things that I feel like I've learned through game dev a lot is like, it's really easy to just consider what is in the game, what is in the engine just itself, like what, but the whole experience of the game is what you're experiencing in person as well. So like right now we're working on a game that has like turn-based stuff in it. And we were talking about like, oh, well, if you have like 6 players all taking their turn, you might be waiting for a while. But if it's a party game, that's like time you're, telling each other what to do or making jokes or like, I need to grab a glass of water. It's not my turn. Let me get up and go do that. Like it's never been a problem in, like Mario Party or something like that. It's a part of the game and the pacing and the fun anyway. So that's just something interesting I hadn't really considered until we started like actually designing games and being like, oh, right. It's more than just what's on the screen.
Yeah, 100%. I do think it would be funny to see someone get really like aggressive and be a toxic player playing Goo Goo Grapplers though.
Well, yeah, we do have a roommate that gets very frustrated. So.
Really?
I mean, the thing is because we're the dev, so he's like, this game's not balanced. He's just like, it
was actually kind of great, like play testing with him too. Well, I think one of my favorite parts was he used an ability and he was like, this is extremely powerful. This is so OP. Like, you gotta nerf this. And then next time he played, he was like, this is terrible now. What did you guys do? I was like, I haven't actually touched that one yet.
No.
I mean, it was also great seeing him just complain about us making a certain build and like destroying him with the build. He's like, that is like the most unfair build. You need to patch that completely. Next match, he goes this exact same build. We go the build he had. He just loses. So I guess
it was funny. We did kind of mess with it a little bit, but it went to show that like, initial reactions aren't always the reality when it comes to balancing.
No, most definitely. I think that actually is proves a really good point that a lot of times, there are times where it's like is a balance issue, but other times it is like a skill get good issue. But it's just easier to blame the game, right?
Well, it's easier to blame the game, especially when the devs are right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like you are my enemy here. Yeah.
The game does feature like a dynamic shop and like lane pushing objectives. How did you balance the fast-paced parts of the game while also adding in like the thoughtful moments that the player has to have to build, I guess, like the best baby build?
So definitely kind of what I was saying a bit before about like when you're playing in person with someone, and there is something to like your first match, you're learning a lot of like, okay, what abilities do I have? How can I use them? Like what passives are in shop? Like there's a lot more learning the strategy at the beginning, that it does go a bit slower. And it does feel a little bit like, hey, if I'm in here reading what my ability does, that's time that my opponent could be like pushing or doing something kind of more live action, I guess. So it's one of those things that, on your second game or third, you're like, oh, I know what kind of builds I could go for. I have an idea of how I could combine some things. And you start to make those strategic decisions during the combat, or like be like, oh, this is a really good time for me to go back and do this.
I think one of the big things was making stuff like it's complex, but it's not a massive system like other MOBAs. Where
each thing itself is pretty simple.
It's pretty simple, and what we noticed was by making it a system not entirely like that as big as other MOBAs, people generally by game 2 get a full grasp of it. They're like, I understand. I mean, they might not have the best strategy at that moment, but they understand like all the moving parts that are there.
Yeah.
If you're already a MOBA player, that can happen game 1. But it was, I think the big thing was keeping the system simple enough. There was no correct answer of how simple or how complex we had to make it, but just feeling it out over time, just being like, okay, this is a fresh player. How long does it get for that person to understand the whole game?
Yeah.
But that's definitely an issue for, I think, for first time players. it might start off slow because they're forced into a lot more of those. I forget the exact word you used. Thought moments.
Like the thoughtful sort
The
of
thoughtful
like,
moments, not because necessarily they know the meta and they're like, what is my best move, but because they don't know it, right? They don't know the game, so they're put in this position where they really have to think about things that they don't know yet. That can slow down the game. It really has only been the first match that people play it.
Yeah, but again, that's also where I hope, again, and you can never control this, it's just part of it, where, when I'm sitting down and playing with someone, I see their reading, and I'm just like, oh, this, I try to like give pointers, or like that one's good, or, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think also with the genre, the whole thing is sort of balancing like bigger strategic moves with smaller action, like execution and stuff like that. The macro and the micro. And like, in a way, how you're fighting is a lot of the micro play, but then also you've got the macro, not just of what abilities do I want to get, what passives do I want to get, how do I want to upgrade, but then also just if you're on a 2-lane, which I think we're probably getting into this later, but like, am I going to be pushing the top one, or am I going to be defending this other one that my opponent is in, and going back and forth between that, I think is where a lot of the fun is in the genre as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who, like, as a player, I'm toxic, but I'm really bad also, which is like an interesting combination. So not being on a team, I feel like I would have more, it takes some of that stress off for me. Like, I had a friend just throw me in League, and I was like basically fresh blood in the water, right? Like, it was like, and it was one of those situations where it's like, oh, if I spend too long reading what these abilities are and putting stuff together properly, then I get yelled at for looking at it too long by the team. But then also, if I don't use stuff right, then I get yelled at for not using stuff right. And like, it was a interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Yeah. I think also something we tried to do is like, you really can't super mess up your build. So you could just be like, I'm not going to read it. I see it's an upgrade and I'm buying it, and you'll be getting stronger. And
it might not be the best thing you can do, but it's not bad.
But that has definitely been an approach of a lot of people, of just, if I see it and it's an upgrade, I'm buying it. Like, yeah. And that's totally valid and pretty, for the kind of currency in the game, the toy parts they're called. It's kind of cost effective as well to just be like, yep, I'm just gonna grab them all. Because then you're not spending money rolling. Even though it's not too expensive to, you can sort of refresh the shop, and there's kind of that as well of balancing your. There's not a whole like economy system or anything like that, but trying to spend your XP wisely.
Yeah. Did you run into any like design issues when you were like planning these systems out?
Yes.
probably with just about any part of the game, like whether they were big or small, most were like.
There was a lot of debating how the shop should work. Should it be something that's in game? Should you become invulnerable and enter this UI menu that you channel to enter the shop, and all of a sudden people can't interact with you? Is it just because we ended up landing with, it's literally just a part of the map? This doesn't happen often because it's really not safe for the enemy to do this, but you can enter the other person's shop and interrupt them from purchasing stuff.
Interesting.
Usually not a good idea.
Because they're healing in there. It's behind their base.
Yeah, but you could do it maybe if you want to BM or what have you. But yeah, there was a lot of. I think one of our
that took us a really long time to settle
decide,
on.
Yeah, because it was just, it feels like it's this action-packed thing, but then you have to stop being in the action to be doing shop stuff. Should it still be a part of the action? And it just felt so weird to us. But then in the end, it kind of worked out where it's like, if you're spending time in the shop, you're getting stronger, but you're also wasting time. So it kind of makes sense that it's a part of the combat. So it's like there's a price to pay for getting stronger,
Right.
and it's that time
you
that
have
you're
to give
spending.
up time and sort of I want to say stage control. Like, yeah, you're just not a presence on the map when you're doing
Which
that,
honestly,
really.
like to us, might feel like, oh, we made that decision, but in League they already do that, right?
Yeah.
Because
No, that
you
is
have to
how it
back.
works.
It's because we play a lot of Heroes of the Storm where you can get your upgrades anywhere. So
yeah, because
you
they
don't
do
really
like a
have to do
talent
that.
system as you level up. But we also talked about having it be like a central thing on the map as being like, this is the upgrade shop, and it's shared between both players.
You have to fight over the shop.
And it's like, oh, if you want to get your upgrades, you have to actually like fend off your opponent or create space to like get in there and start getting your stuff. But then that led more into like probably snowballing and stuff. Well, if you're strong
absolutely.
in the fight, why should you be getting more upgrades?
Literally, like if you're stronger, then you can just camp the shop, and then the other person.
That's my worst nightmare as a bad player. Like,
So snowballing was a huge thing we had to fight against during design as well, because that used to be. Because I think the minions were a funny part.
Oh yeah, we minions would, if you didn't, but that wasn't really a snowbally thing. I mean, kind of was, but it was like if you didn't keep track of the map, minions were just way too strong, so they would just win the game and you wouldn't even notice. It was like if you're fighting somewhere else and then it's like, so I just lost. So we made them a lot weaker. But I was gonna say there was a lot of snowbally stuff of how do you get toy parts, right, or currency in the game? How do you get them during a match? You basically have to complete some of the objectives, right? Whether that be King of the Hill or killing minions or capturing stuffed elephants. I should call them crawlers, not minions. Killing crawlers. They're minions. It's a universal term.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if your opponent got too strong, you would never be able to reach those things, right? And you'd get so much less of them. So we ended up calculating.
You have no team also to like back you up. If you die, it was just you defending, and now their whole team of one player gets to push. So snowballing was like, we have to really be careful about this.
And there wasn't one solution to this. Like it was a combination of a few of them. The ones I'm instantly thinking of is we have a comeback factor being mapped in the background of like how far behind you are. And basically based on that, whenever you get a toy part, and we don't tell the players ever about this, but if you get a toy part that is the only thing. If you get a toy part, it will give you potentially more money than it would have if you were ahead or if you just didn't have any comeback.
And it scales that the more behind you are, basically you have it's just a multiplier.
It's a multiplier.
Like so how much value you're getting out of it.
You have a harder time getting toy parts, but they reward you more.
Yeah. And then we added bubbles around the map that have toy parts. So they're basically uncontested spots where you can get it. They're just literally, you can walk out of your shop, the safest place there is, and you can pop some of these bubbles and get rewarded with it.
Because you'd get really punished for like, if you were behind, they could wall you off from the stuff that gives you toy part bubbles, but by giving you the stuff that gives you toy parts, but by spreading toy part bubbles literally everywhere. So it can be found anywhere. They can't really do that. They can't camp you out like that. So that was an interesting design challenge.
I also think the day we added the toy part bubbles was, I don't know, one of my favorite moments because it totally changed how we played to just, I have to walk from here to here and it takes a while. You're going along and you're like popping bubbles on the way and you're just getting hit with that like collecting sort of dopamine. Or like in Rocket League, how they have all these different boosts. Yeah, I don't play a ton of Rocket League, but it's just like throughout the map, like anytime you're going from one spot to another, it's like got to make sure you pass over that to refill your energy. It's kind of something like that. And it just made the walking around more fun.
Yeah, just like Fortnite, if you were in Fortnite, if you're just whacking a tree, you have to do it regardless. But the fact that they have a mini game inside the game, which is when you're whacking a tree, these targets show up, and a lot of games have started doing that when you have to farm. Yeah, and there's targets that you have to react to and hit them to farm faster. That makes a sort of AFK experience feel a lot more engaging.
Yeah.
And we kind of did that as we meant to do it as a comeback factor solve, but then it ended up being just like, oh, this is a mini game that will keep me stimulated the whole time, regardless of what I'm doing, because I can always be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll say, like, it sounds like you have approached preventing snowballing well, which is a big issue because it's like I don't want a match to be like chess where it's like, oh, at the very beginning we already know who's gonna win, right? Like that's not fun.
Yeah.
I think you should fight to keep that first place. There should be an ongoing battle the entire time, not just
the blue shell.
Well, we didn't even mention the biggest thing that was our comeback mechanic, like, or anti-snowball here or whatever. Called it Last Stand. And so in a lot of MOBAs, you win the game when you destroy their core or their fort or whatever it's called, different nexus, different things in different games. But in Goo Goo Grapplers, it doesn't actually end when that happens. It just means the player whose pillow fort it was, they're put into what's called Last Stand, and you get a giant buff. All of your damage is higher. You get a huge shield. You become like the final boss of the game, and it gives you a really good chance, especially if you were losing the whole game. Now suddenly you get to just like beat up the guy who's been beating you up the whole game,
right.
And then it's pretty often that you end up in a double Last Stand,
right,
where
so it's like
someone can make it all the way back, but you've had all that time to whittle down your final boss's health, and now you get this big buff. But it really it gets so swingy that it's always anybody's game at some point. You have to stay on it.
Designing a lot of rubber bandiness with you get pulled behind, you're so behind, but you can be flinged forward so easily. There still is skill at play at all times,
right.
but
it's not the type of thing where it's a good idea to be behind on purpose. It's not.
It's not
still
a good idea.
If you're ahead, you've earned it. You have an advantage. But it's just the idea that, like, hey, never get too comfortable, because your opponent is going to get really powerful at the end, and you're still going to have to like beat them with
doesn't matter how much how well you think you're playing. There's still a chance.
Yeah, I love that. What was your approach to like designing the abilities and passives? You kind of discussed like you were grabbing inspiration from random baby things. Was there anything else that kind of went into that?
I mean, again, a lot of it was researching, Googling stuff of babies, looking at photos and being like, oh, is there anything fun out of that? Like, mechanically, there's also the idea of, well, for the passives, we wanted to keep things relatively simple. So there's a few like trade-offy ones, but it is just like, hey, this is all about mixing and matching. So you want the elements that you can put together to create something unique, not just a bunch of super unique things that can't play well together.
Right.
But yeah, for the abilities, I think it was really about like one, trying to do stuff that was kind of fun. Just follow the fun is always kind of a good idea.
There's definitely a lot of inspiration from other games. Just like, oh, what is a playstyle and ability that we really like in Heroes of the Storm or in Smash? And it's like, I mean, we keep bringing up these two. It's just we're completely obsessed with them. But just like, Sticky Hand kind of works like Stitches in Heroes of the Storm. You can hook the person and bring them close to you. But then we were like, but you know what also kind of looks like Stitch's hook, but is also fun, is the fact that Kira, who's another Heroes of the Storm character, can like throw her hook into a wall and she goes over to the wall. So we were like, why don't we make Sticky Hand do both? It can pull opponents in, or you can use it as a movement tool. If you throw it against the wall, you get pulled towards the wall. So there's a lot of just what is the dream scenario for us, like what would be awesome for us to do in the games that we already play.
I also definitely was thinking a lot about how can these, specifically for the abilities, how can they work together and synergize while I was making them. So like One of the abilities is building blocks, in which they're basically Legos, but generic. And it hurts to step on Legos, so it basically is a pile you set out, and it does damage and slows you when you're on it. But kind of one of the issues with it is, right, well, I can just not walk on it, or if you do hit me with it and I'm on it, I can walk out of it. So that's where it was like, okay, well, we need an ability that can stun. So it's like, I get you on this trap that's doing damage, and then I want to stun you on it. Like, that was part of why the foam dart ability we have, which is like a Nerf gun, kind of came to be, was like, I think we need this to make stuff work together.
But then there's stuff like, oh my god, we've made this combo and it's awesome, but it can get too busted, right? It can get way too strong if you do all the right build, like the right build, and you combo like even more abilities, because you get 3 abilities, including the iPad, which is another stun, or sorry, the tablet, not the iPad.
Yeah, we had a
legally
whole lot
distinct.
of stuff that was like, we got to make all this like legally distinct, because we were like basing stuff off of real toys. There's almost like it didn't make it into the game, but like an elephant thing that like would shoot out things in different directions. I don't know if you remember elephant, where you I don't know, stuff like that. But then I was like, how am I even gonna make this not the thing it is? But didn't make it.
Bringing it, we were talking about like, okay, we made this combo, right, and it's way too busted. But now it's like, okay, well, we can make a passive out of this. There's something that counters that, which is the baby helmet. So whenever you get stunned, you have a brief period where you take less damage. And so it's like, okay, well, it's a passive that completely counters a build, and maybe because it completely counters a build, it should be expensive, right? So we have like an expensive passive that helps you fight against a build, where like if you're getting frustrated because your opponent has this crazy combo, there are outs. Yeah. And that has been a lot of our game design. It's like, it's a passive that's typically, or like, it might not help you at all, but in certain situations, it might just completely change the flow of the game.
And then again, kind of with the like that first impulse of being like, oh, I have this thing, what do I want to do to make it better, or combo with it, or synergize with it? And then pulling back and being, how do I want to be able to counter my opponent doing this? How do I want to, and it just, you're constantly creating problems and questions for yourself. And then, all right, well, I know what the next ability is. It's the answer to that question, or it's the solution to that problem. And so it kind of created a really natural, like, building off, so that everything kind of feels related in a way. But then nothing can be way too strong, because we worked at creating a solution to that.
We haven't really mentioned that one of the big things in Goo Goo Grapplers is that typically in MOBAs, as a character, you have a set of abilities that you start off with, and those will be your abilities until the end of the match. But the whole thing with GGG is, even though you do have, well, you actually don't have a starting set of abilities. You start off with an empty hot bar, and you get to pick your starting abilities as you see your opponent also picking their starting abilities. But not only that, if you're not happy with how the game is going, we basically also, apart from passives, or we're going to think of them as items in the shop, they're passives, right? We also, you can replace your abilities that you currently have. So if you're like, this build really isn't working against them, you can replace whatever ability, whichever one for whatever is in the shop at like a very low cost, because we do want to make it super dynamic, where it's like, I want to be able to swap how I'm playing really easily, right? If they did something to counter me, I want to be able to counter that counter. And I don't know, that was a big decision on our part, or just the limit of how flexible we want to be. And the more we like developed, the more we wanted to make it flexible. Because at first we were like, okay, maybe you can swap your upgrades around between your abilities, and maybe it should cost like 2 gold. But then at some point we're like, just make it free. Just make it free. Like, you can swap your build. It's fine. You still have to go to the shop to do it, right? It's still, you're paying that way. But
I think that keeps the whole battle like interesting too.
Mhm.
I also like that y'all's approach is still keeping like some of the OP stuff in, but like putting in solutions rather than completely
Yeah.
taking them out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
'Cause it
sounds like
feels good.
chaos.
It feels good to be OP.
Yeah, it
It
feels
feels good.
yeah.
Um, we kind of already discussed sort of like the mixing and matching of baby builds and
Yes.
how you designed the upgrade system to like keep things fresh and unpredictable. We kind of already jumped into that question, so I think we can skip that. But how do the like different maps, like multi versus single lane, affect the gameplay and the player strategy?
Um, yeah, I mean, it again, kind of touching back on like the whole micro versus macro thing. It really the not just how many lanes, but then also like the size of the map itself, like can really drive you to build certain ways or play certain ways. Where like if I'm on a really big map, suddenly movement speed and like upgrading that, being like, I'm going to be a speedster and like run around is really good because you can go to all these different parts of the map where you might need to either go defend or be capturing something, etc. But then in smaller maps, like you might be like, hey, I want to be able to just
Zone.
take you head on or zone.
Like
Yeah.
stuff like there's one of the maps.
Right, because if you can't just run away from,
Yeah,
you can kind of set up traps and stuff with some of the abilities. So it's like, if I can just run around that or there's plenty of room, you're not threatening much with those area
Right.
effects.
You're in a massive map and the person spends like, I don't know, all of his abilities setting up a huge trap at the bottom left corner. You're like, huh.
Cool, dude.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
You do you, man. I'll just go up to the top lane. So it's
Yeah.
just a lot of that, definitely.
Yeah. We also have some passives that directly influence not your baby, but your either your structures or your minions or the capturing the elephants, which are basically like
Your jungle, your mercenaries.
your jungle merc camps kind of thing. So for example, the one where, yeah, I'm gonna make my crawlers, my minions, like have more health and damage. That I'm not gonna say it's twice as effective on a 2-laner, but it affects twice as many minions.
Yeah.
Because there are for more because you have more lanes. So things
Right.
like that, like literally change the stats even on these different maps. Or for some 1-laners, we had to change even like subtly, but the health of like some of the towers, because for one of the layouts, it's you've got your core, and then you've got your top lane fort, and then your top lane tower, and then your bottom lane tower defending it. But then one of the 1-laners, it's you have your pillow forts, and then a tower, and then another tower in front of that. So you actually have to, it seems like it's smaller, so it's like, oh, these games will go quicker, macro won't matter as much, but you have to get through 2 towers instead of 1 from one side to even get to the fort. So we didn't
Right.
realize at first, oh, that's actually extending it. So then we made another map where it's just 1 tower, 1 fort, and like a really thin
in that
lane.
kind of situation where we have 2 towers instead of 1, we just like lower the health on the towers. Right?
Oh yeah, we lowered it. That's what we did.
lowered
it. And there's like an ability we added that lets you do more damage to towers to like cut through it. And so the strategy does change a bit map to map. One we recommend people play on a lot is the backyard, which is the smallest map. It's 1 lane. It only has 1 tower each. And both the elephant and the king of the hill are like centralized. So it's like, it's all about fighting. You're just fighting in the middle as much as you can, because that's the part that people immediately pick up.
Especially if you're
Right.
not a MOBA player.
It's like, I just want to fight.
I just want to fight.
Right.
It's that people are used to, that it's more common in games. It's like you're not thinking about the macro. You're like, there's a baby with a foam dart gun in front of me, and I have a maraca. I will hide behind this wall and then whack this baby. Like that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about there are crawlers that are going over at top lane, especially when when you're just starting and you don't realize the impact of it. So it's like, okay, with new players, any playtest or festival that we've been to, it's just like,
if you just want to fight,
go on this
there's
map.
a map for you.
There's a map
for you. It's like this.
I love that. Yeah, it sounds like you like provided a lot of variety through like the maps that are available to match whatever like play style that they're looking for. It sounds like y'all tested your game a lot, which is really good. I can tell like from when you're talking that like you pulled a lot of like design fixes and things like that from like the actual like hands-on play testing. Were there any specific like broken combos or like hilarious synergies that you just randomly stumbled on that like stick out in your mind as like, yeah, that was crazy?
Do you want to take it or should I?
My favorite thing in the game that I love doing is there's this one ability that's the RC car. It's a remote controlled car. When you upgrade it to tier 3, it basically gets more health and its health deteriorates slower over time. And so because of that, okay, so you have a tank that you can spawn. So the RC car upgrades into a tank and you can spawn it, but you also have this ultimate ability that's called Crayon Eater. And when you eat the crayons, your cooldowns become really low. So basically you can eat crayons, get really fast cooldowns and spawn an army of tanks. And so you're just like, you don't control them until you've spawned like at least 5 of them. And all of a sudden you start controlling them. You control them with your right stick. And you're just a baby with 5 tanks in front of you, like rushing towards your opponent. And I had no problem with that whatsoever because it was like, it's something that you can only do every, 40 or 50 seconds. So I don't care. Like, do it.
You have to use we call them specials, but it's basically like an ultimate ability to do that. And that's like broken in the fun way. And like, this is really powerful. If you got hit by all those, it probably would one-shot you.
Yeah. But you can get away.
Or damage it or whatever. But then there was also, of course, broken stuff where like, oh no, we have to remove this.
If this is bad, if we ship it with this, it's bad.
We had a infinite combo with we mentioned actually I guess we mentioned all the abilities that are required for it. Is the foam darts which stun you, and then basically the grappling hook, the sticky hand, which also has like a very brief stun, and then the rattle, or I always want to say maraca because that's what we called it internally forever. And then
that's what
someone's like, shouldn't it be like a baby rattle? I was like, yeah,
right.
Yeah. But those 3 specifically, if you got there were passives that had cooldown reduction. There were 2 different ones. Now there's only one, and the cooldown reduction is so much less. But if you got all the cooldown reduction, you didn't even need the Crayon Eater ult. That like the whole point is that you have like no cooldowns, and you could infinite. Oh, if I got 1 hit on you with any of my 3 abilities, whether that was the maraca or rattle. Whether that was the rattle, sticky hand, or darts, I can guarantee hit the rest, and just you can't get out of it until you're dead. And we were like, we can't. We can't let that fly. It's still really annoying to fight against in its current form, but it's not infinite. You can always get out. But yeah, that was a big one where you're like, this can't stay in. Or like we have the milk bottle that you squirt that used to just delete buildings, because the thing is it shoots out all these little particles that each do a little bit of damage, and it's kind of in a spread. So when you're shooting against a player or any sort of moving target, you can't hit all of it. Like its damage gets spread out. That's not the case for a big target that doesn't move.
Right.
Every pellet or droplet is gonna hit it. So we had to add like basically some hidden multipliers that different weapons or abilities do less damage to towers and stuff like that. Because same for like applesauce, you could just delete towers. Yeah. But then we were like, hey, to bring this back, because it did feel really good to delete it, we added something, a passive
where it's like deal extra damage
to towers. And then you go back to having that really broken thing.
Right.
But you have to invest into it, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like the moments of overpowering you left in by design. It wasn't like an accidental thing, which I think makes a big difference. Because sometimes those OP things that happen are really epic to see like unfold. And so it's nice that they are still in there. I think because it's only local multiplayer too, right? So I think that adds to it too, because you can kind of see what your opponent's doing, and you can be like, oh, I see you eating all these crayons. I know what you're trying to like do, or whatever they might be doing to get to that like.
That was actually like a big design thing for us, is like
please
figuring
screen peek.
It's like you have to screen peek. Like you have to, because in MOBAs there's so much of like, where is the enemy? You can use bushes to hide from them. You never see them if they're not in the line of sight, or anyone in your team. And so like we have the exact opposite. You always know exactly where they are, exactly where they're doing. We have a display that displays all the passive that they've bought throughout that match. You can always see that. And so it's like, I can see your soul, like, and what information, what do I do with that? So I can see everything about you. What do I do with that? So that becomes part of the game. And that was interesting. We were scared of it at first. It's like, oh, now we can't surprise them. But it's like, no, like it's about how much can you actually retain of the information you've been given about your enemy. And
like, oh, I forgot you had that passive.
No, I know that you have exactly this, but if I forget, if he knows stuff about me and I don't pay attention to the stuff about him, he's gonna have an advantage, you know?
Yeah.
So
I do kind of want to shift over to like more technical stuff. So like what game engine do you develop in, and is there a particular reason why you use that one? If you use an engine at all.
We do. I mean, it would be cool not to, but we do. We use Unity. I think, if being completely transparent, the reason I use Unity, I mean, there are other reasons as well, but the main reason was because it was the first engine that I picked up. It seemed to be the most accessible one. There was a lot of resources on it online. I was able to self-teach myself. How would I say that? Self-teach the engine. And so I just got extremely comfortable with it. And I was like, okay, if I'm tackling a big project, I might as well use the thing I'm most comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah. And then I also think it's pretty good for like the type of projects we're making. We don't need giant open world hyper realism or anything like that.
Trillions of triangles.
Yeah.
We don't need Unreal look for babies.
Yeah, especially since GGG is a 2D game. It's like Unity has a lot of good 2D tools. I've heard Godot is great as well. We just, again, aren't as familiar with it. And again, one of the nice things he mentioned, the community as well, is like anytime there's a problem, you can just kind of like Google and you'll find someone making a post in like a Unity forum 7 years ago and save your life. And it's great. And all the assets and just tools like people have built and plugins and all that. It's packages.
And I'm sure that there's also the side, I hadn't thought about that till now, but the fact that I took some graphics programming, like shader programming courses in college, and I love implementing that in whatever game I make. And those courses were all, even though they were strictly like we were coding in HLSL or GLSL, most of the class we were working within a Unity context. So like I'm very familiar with how to implement shader stuff in Unity, but I wouldn't necessarily be, not that I don't know how hard the transition would be, but I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable doing that kind of custom rendering stuff in other engines. So that also is a big thing of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's perfect for what you're needing. I agree. I think the Unity community is really good. Unreal's catching up too as time goes on. But yeah.
We'll make a hyper realistic baby fighting.
I mean, that would be funny too. Um,
I always realize when different people in life are like, oh, like, what are you working on right now? And I halfway through describing the game would be like, by the way, it's like pixelated and cartoony. This isn't like graphic displays
Of babies.
beating each other.
I mean, that would also be interesting though.
Yeah.
So like, what were some of the like biggest technical challenges that y'all have faced like during development?
Yeah, this one comes from the lack of planning that we were talking about before, of starting this as not something that we even knew if we were going to finish eventually. It was like, I'm just making this. I'm making this game. Oh, look, I made this little baby walk and I made this little baby dash. But I was not thinking about the architecture. I was not thinking about anything else. It was just how do I make this thing because I'm curious about it, right? And all of a sudden start becoming a game and you're like, oh God. Oh God.
What are these dependencies?
Oh my God, there are so many dependencies. Everything needs to know about everything. And it's like, I should have thought about this, but also there was no way I would have known I would be in this deep. But I think honestly, like the main thing that we have is just the player needs to know about the other player. And I know this is like a weird thing to say, but it's just like the player depends on the other player. And that just like completely messed us up because it's like very prototype code type stuff that is there. But it's like, yeah, player one has a reference to other player. And all of a sudden that breaks everything because it's like, I can't add another player. I can't remove the player. I am way in too deep. And it's like all because I didn't plan.
Yeah.
And I should have. I know I should have. We've learned our lesson learned. It's like even if it's a prototype, consider that. You know?
Yeah.
That's
good advice, by the way.
Yeah.
A funny thing we were talking about earlier is there's a training mode in it, which is basically you could just like walk around, test out different builds. You have like infinite money. But again, we can't remove a player or the game doesn't work. The scene won't run.
Okay.
So there's just an invisible hidden player too.
I mean, he's not even invisible. The baby,
he's just way off.
Baby's just like 300 units north. It's just there.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's like, did the player need to know about the other player? No, because the single player works perfectly fine, right? But it's like, there's too many points where the player does know about the other player, where it's just like, oh God, like, it's embarrassing to even say it, but like,
no, I think this is great to hear because I think your game looks like well put together, and it's important to remember that sometimes the easiest way to handle stuff, if it's going to add like months or even like a year to like go back and redo all this stuff, so that way you can put like just one player in, like maybe you don't need to do that. Just put the other like player in somewhere, right? Like.
Yeah, because a lot of times the best way to do something is whatever gets it done. But again, it is just a scalability type of thing that it's good that it kind of just comes all back to planning again. It's good to have an idea of how big is this project, what are all the features going to be before you go into it. So yeah, you can produce it in a way that meets your needs. You don't need to have a super crazy modular system for something you can make in like a week, because it depends what it is. But
the thing is, I think my greatest advice kind of related to that is, first of all, I would say plan your projects, right? Plan the architecture, plan the code. But if you don't, and that would be the case for everyone, just know your system, because if you know your system, you can hack it. And that's kind of like what allowed us to make GGG in 3.5 months. Is like we knew our system, so we got it shipped in 3.5 months. We start to finish. Wow. It's just like we did it. We finished it, and it wasn't the healthiest 3.5 months.
There was not a lot of sleep. There was not a lot of sleep, and there were like almost no weekends.
But it was kind of like, okay, we have this broken system. It's not going to get better. We're not going to redo it. We know what we got to do.
Let's design around it.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Find the hacky workaround. And it had to be good enough. and it was. I am like happy with
I'm
the
very
end,
happy
the end
with it,
product.
yeah.
Like I am proud of like the game we made. It's like, you know what? If there was a little bit of spaghetti, as long as it doesn't affect the actual experience of playing it,
It
ends
works.
up not mattering.
Yeah.
It
You
works.
wouldn't know
You
there's
would never
spaghetti code.
know.
You would never
You would
know there's
never know.
spaghetti code, but there is.
I'll say too, like even professional AAA games, sometimes you'll randomly like fall through the floor and then see like a person down there or something and be like, oh, what's all this then? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
it's
a famous example. I forget which game it was. Was it one of the Fallout games? There's someone where they made a train a hat for a player, and so when the train moves, there's just a character underground moving with them the whole time in a Bethesda game. Like,
yeah.
I
See?
mean, my brother was also just talking about how in League, I don't play too much League, so I don't know the character name. So sorry, League players, but there's just this one character that has to do something that has to do with bushes, right? But the only way that that character could access the relevant data about the bushes is by having I'm probably butchering this, but it's something along these lines. Is having a teammate in that bush, because that way you could see the bush, right? So what League did, and if I'm wrong, please just, it was my brother's fault, is they spread out per team. If you had that character, they would put 30 invisible other characters, like allies, in bushes across the map.
That's crazy.
So that
but it
you could have
works.
access to that data, and it works. So
yeah.
Hopefully we're not just spreading some like what if this becomes like
Well,
some like
believe it.
Please fact check me.
No. Yeah, I'll look into it and then I'll put something on the screen. That would be crazy though, to see like if you were wrong and then like next week there's like a Reddit post that's like, did you know that they just put 30 people in the bushes?
Yeah, please. If a short is made out of this, include us with a disclaimer. It might not be true.
But no, it is whatever works. And I think indie devs too try and hold themselves to like an even higher standard than like AAA games. And it's like, no, like get your game out, like just do it, you know, like that's what matters. So yeah. More general question, like, is there any advice you would give to aspiring devs who want to develop a game like this?
Well, I'm going to say the same thing I just said, which is plan ahead.
Right.
And if you haven't planned, know your system.
And I think to a smaller degree of that, like we mentioned playtesting a lot. Well, one, I do think playtesting is really important because there's a whole lot of things that you can get used to and be like, oh, this makes sense. And you don't actually know if it does until you put it in front of someone else. Like, in little things too that you would never even consider. It's like, oh, everybody thought this is how you, like, even just interact with this menu, or didn't know you press X to do this. And like, you're like, oh, I thought that was just. There's a lot of blind spots you get. So it's playtest, but what I was gonna say is, even if you don't have the full plan, you can plan out what your next goal is, or your next week. And for us, we used playtests a lot as that, like, hey, we have to get this and this done before this next event because it's going to be in front of people. And
good deadlines. Playtests are great deadlines.
So setting deadlines is a good thing to do.
Because as indie game developers, it's easy not to have deadlines because you're oftentimes you're working for yourself, so you don't have deadlines. Yeah, it's like,
but there's a lot of games that don't get made because there were no deadlines.
If you have to show people, you will have to make it because they will. You don't want to show them something that they're going to be like, what do I?
So what I do? Yeah, if everything's unfinished in it, then you can't interact with it yet. So it'll get you to finish features for sure.
Yeah.
And then for like MOBA specific, it seems like just play testing your own game, because I do think it's clear y'all spent a lot of attention in like balancing or making those thoughtful decisions again about like, well, let's keep this in actually, but then add this other thing in. Things that like you catch only by playing the game actually, you know? So yeah, that's good advice. Are you interested in like competitive or tournament play for Goo Goo Grapplers? I would love to see a Goo Goo Grapplers tournament.
I
think a lot of our friends have also said that.
yeah. A lot of friends and playtesters have definitely asked about that. It's something that we would obviously like love to see. We think it's the type of game that you very much could do that with. But I think just in part of the fact that like you technically can play online because it supports Steam Remote Play. But in part because it is an indie game and it is offline, it's harder to like get enough people together to have a tournament.
Right.
Although I saw someone left like a Steam review that was like, oh, this has become like a game night thing with like some of my friends and we do some house rules and stuff. And I was like, one, that's awesome to hear. And then two, it's like, right, I guess, you know, if you've got a friend group, you can get a tournament going. But yeah, so in an ideal world, yeah, I would love to see big tournaments and esports and all that. But I think it's just, again, it's a niche enough thing that it's gonna have to be groups of friends who decide to get really into it.
We should have done it. We were just at MagFest showing Goo Goo Grapplers, and there was an option to sign up for, or like to create a tournament that anyone could sign up for, and that would have been great to see. But we just didn't do it because I don't know if it was like.
I think it was a timing thing, and we didn't know if
enough people would join.
Yeah, or if like 4 people sign up. But
I guess there would also be like a lot of our friends would participate, and they would have a massive advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it was all for fun anyway.
It was.
That's normal though for tournaments. You know, there's always people who play it more.
People who are just way better.
Yeah, but we realized we should have done it because there were a number of people there. It was like there
were some people. There was a group of friends that
came back every day.
Well, it was like with these two, and then they would bring their other friends. They'd be like, "Okay, you've got to play this." And of course, they were MOBA players. They just love MOBAs.
But no, that was also really cool to see firsthand.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think this game in particular would be a funny one to hear, like people commenting as there's like a tournament going. Like, I just think it'd be great. I would definitely watch that.
That would be great. Yeah.
I guess another like general question, like, what's one thing that you hope players take away from like their experience playing your game?
I think for me, and this maybe is like a selfish thing because it's what gratifies me when I play it. What like when I have a good match and I'm like, that felt great. That's kind of what I want other people to feel. So it's basically when you really feel like you upgraded, like you feel like you became busted. Like I was struggling to do anything, and by the end, I'm just destroying and doing anything I want. That's the feeling, which is common throughout a lot of games. It's just like the whole, that's why a lot of games that center around upgrading your character are so popular. But if people get to feel that way, where they, after, even if it's a defeat, or maybe no, like after a victory, you're like, yeah, I made that happen. I was useless, and now I am this monster. that is a great feeling that I would like people to have from the gameplay, right? I also want them to have fun with their friends.
Well, yeah, definitely have fun is like first and foremost, I think, for most games. And then also kind of one thing is, again, we talked about it being like a mini MOBA or baby's first MOBA or something like that. I do really think that it can be an entry point for people in the genre, people who explicitly dislike it. Dislike the genre, end up liking the game and like the concepts with it. So that's kind of a takeaway for me of like kind of demystifying MOBAs a bit. And like,
well, I was going to say, like, one of our friends, Zach, used to hate MOBAs, right? But he loves Goo Goo Grapplers. But we didn't really get him into MOBAs through Goo Goo Grapplers. He likes Goo Goo Grapplers.
That's true.
So we haven't quite succeeded yet.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think that's a part of it. Yeah. And then kind of to what you were saying with the like feeling more powerful, I think something fun is feeling like you've like discovered some sort of combination of like abilities and upgrades. Like I think that feels really good. So yeah, just experimenting,
because
learning.
The discovering thing. My cousin, when I was playing with him, I remember he sort of, because he had his own build, right? He created his
People
build
were
and
texting us
he
builds.
was winning,
Yeah.
but he was like, it's my build. Oh, you went my build, like
Yeah.
it's like I own this because I found it.
There's
right.
yeah, with
Nice.
that kind of mixing and
Yeah.
matching and the fact that you can like really build out your kit, there's a lot of like player expression possible and sort of
Yeah.
like, again, feeling that ownership over builds that, yeah, as I was kind of saying during that, was a lot of people who, because we sent it out to some different people to play test, and they would always text us back like, yo, I found this broken combo, like take a look at it, make sure it's and like that was always really fun. Like people really like talking about the combos, or like combinations of abilities and passives and stuff, or like play styles. Like that's really fun for people to latch onto. And so yeah, I think if people are able to engage with that and feel like,
If people can
like they're thinking
if
about,
they can theory craft Goo Goo Grapplers,
Exactly.
we'll be
Right.
satisfied.
if they're trying to like figure it out, like, yeah, exactly, we've succeeded.
Yeah, that sounds exactly what I would imagine like people feeling. I think it's great that you get to like hear that feedback too, from like your players. I don't know. You can always see people's eyes light up when they're talking about like stuff that
Yeah.
they've heard from the players. So yeah, I think that that's great. And I do think there's a lot of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like customability. I don't know what the word is, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to also butcher it.
Yeah.
Customizability.
I'll think on my own. I'll think on my own. But no, like I think that you left like a lot of ways for the player to customize their experience and like the way they're fighting, and I think that that's really great. I am also curious, like, are y'all working on any other games right now?
Yes.
Can you share any info on that, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We technically haven't like said anything about it yet. Although we were like,
Soft launch.
yeah,
We're just
we were like, this is about when
Time
we
we
should
should
start
post.
posting and saying stuff about it. We don't have like an official title yet. We've been calling it golf boxing for the time being. But have you ever heard of chess boxing as a thing?
No.
I guess I could explain that
Okay,
first.
you got
It's kind of a joke sport, if you will.
It's awesome.
Although people take it seriously. It's supposed to be the ultimate test of the mind and the body. Whatever. It's again.
It's literally
kind of
what
a
it
joke.
sounds like. Like it's chess and
it's-
boxing.
You go back and forth between rounds of chess and boxing, but it's you play one match of chess and it's like you have 3 minutes for doing your turns, and then you do a round of boxing, and then you go back and forth between them, and you can either win through checkmate or knockout. And it's also like a lot harder to, where do I push my knight after you got punched in the face really hard?
Right.
And there's something kind of really funny about, going between the almost like cold, not that chess is cold, but like more
it's a
thoughtful,
strategy.
it's slower, it's strategy, and then going between hot of like you're fighting. And so the idea of golf boxing is kind of similar, but it's replacing that chess part because it's already exists with basically it's like a mini golf game, and then we're using the brawl part of it. We're actually taking a lot of what we learned from Goo Goo Grapplers and making that kind of brawler into it. So it's going back between those phases.
You play golf,
Yeah.
you fight, you get beat up, you're worse at golf because you got beat up.
Yeah, we're talking about this like sort of composure system or something like that, where we don't have the name totally
We don't have the
figured
name
out.
yet. Yeah.
But yeah, where you're kind of like dizzy or like you're disadvantaged after you get beat up in the
Right.
boxing part.
And it's all that kind of mixed in with some Mario Party elements where you have your turns with golf, but you also have items or cards. We have cards instead of items. They're essentially the same thing, but they're cards that you can play to make your golf strategy, or if in Mario Party you would like use a different dice or a different pair of dice or like die, or you would use the like super golden pipe that sends you all the way to the star or whatever.
Right.
You basically have items that you can use during your golf turn that will get you closer to scoring the what is it called? Pulling out.
Is it called that?
I don't know. I'm really bad with golf because golf terms. I don't know. I don't play a lot of golf, so I don't know all the terms. I know what happens in a golf match.
Right.
Match. I don't know. Yeah, obviously, we're extremely qualified for this. Is why it's mini golf.
Yeah, it's mini golf. It's mini golf.
Oh, I love mini golf. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the mixing of it. Like, it sounds like a game I want to see people stream. Because it's also like just a ridiculous like fighting and then golfing it out.
Yeah, we actually have our first play test for it
on Monday.
Which I don't know if we're ready for, but
yeah, we just
we'll be ready.
We're basically just testing our mini golf right now. We don't have the brawl stuff really figured out much at all, but we have some maps for the mini golf, some physics kind of there, a couple cards you can use to do like a chip shot or rewind if you made a bad shot and you want to go back, or
it's a lot of temporary assets, a lot of temporary.
Yeah, it's physics. A prototype basically. I mean, it's
not a prototype. It's
more developed.
It's because
it has the architecture of a much bigger project because we're going to scale it into that. But right now it looks
like a prototype for sure. Yeah. You wouldn't know it's not a prototype by just looking at it.
Yeah. A lot of gray boxing.
There's a lot of gray boxing.
Yeah. I think the games that y'all work on as a studio are very interesting. And I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on what games y'all release, because it's always it sounds just so interesting. And that also is another game that sounds like a good like party game or
that's kind of where we I guess feel comfortable in is like local multiplayer stuff is really fun for us, I guess.
I guess that's it for like the larger scale questions. I do have 2 like short form questions I want to ask. So we've talked about like advice you would give to people wanting to make a game. But if you had to like just condense your advice to someone just looking to like get into the indie game dev space or start making their first game, aside from planning. No, you can do planning, but what in 30 seconds would you say if you could speak to them?
Guys, I just feel so strongly about it. I just want to say it again.
That's fine.
Yeah, I would say, I'll skip the plan your system part, but that's the first step. Plan your system. I didn't skip it. I said it. Plan your system. But if you didn't plan it, know your system and be comfortable hacking it. Like hack your way and release your game. Just put it out there. Yeah. And people say this a lot, and so I don't feel like I'm saying anything groundbreaking, but do it.
Do whatever you got to do to get it over the finish line. Even if, like, again, we did end up being like, okay, we're gonna do a studio, but even if you're just doing it for you and for fun, like,
yeah,
you can get it done and put it out there and like get it in front of players again with the play testing.
Yeah. That's great advice.
I've heard this advice so many times. I feel like we're not saying anything new, but
it's because it's true.
It is true. It is, and also like you think you're saying the same stuff, but someone might hear you saying it, and that might be like the big, step.
I guess it's never enough. We could just keep putting it out there until
and then if you had to, or can you summarize the indie game dev experience in 3 words?
Goo Grapplers. No. Right.
I don't know.
We were struggling. We talked about this for a bit. One thing that did come up was like build. Well, do you know there was a
TV show,
a really dumb old. It was when Cartoon Network was trying to do like Cartoon Network Live or something. Action. They wanted to do all these shows with real people, and there was a show called Destroy, Build, Destroy, which was familiar. It was a bunch of kids, awesome. And they just gave them like wrecking balls and stuff, and we're like, destroy all these things, and then he gives you a challenge, and you have to like build something.
You would build you would destroy a car, and then build another vehicle that looked completely insane out of that.
Yeah.
And then once you do the challenge with that vehicle, we're getting sidetracked, but whatever. Once you do the challenge with that vehicle, you would then blow it up at the end. It was like,
oh, that's cool.
It was insane.
But we were kind of joking earlier. The dev process is kind of like build, destroy, build. It's like you make something and then try to break it in as many ways as you can.
Yes.
And take it apart.
Like something actually take it apart, right?
Yeah. And then build it back
again,
up and fix it and tweak it and whatever. And it's just a process of build, destroy, build. Just over and over repeating on itself.
You should put in an edit of, you don't have to, but an edit of the destroy, build, destroy, but with the words flipped around.
I will. Yeah, I can do that.
The intro was awesome.
It's funny too, because I think I vaguely remember, I think Adult Swim used to put on commercials for like, that were like random weird games that I don't even think they actually existed. But this actually reminds me of one that I would see maybe them like, that they totally would have put up, you know, during a break. So yeah, but it's nice to see it actually be like a fully fledged game. I think that the 3 words that you used are actually very good. Yeah.
They're good? Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I think it's I'll say that's from my perspective, I think that summarizes it well. So yeah, that's all the questions I had. Again, like I just really enjoy learning about like the games that you guys are creating. Like I'll definitely keep an eye on your studio, and
Awesome.
I'll also put in like links and everything so people can also follow. And let's get like a Goo Goo Grapplers tournament going or something.
Yeah, that would be
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If anyone out there wants to do it, we could set it up.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Cool.
yeah, thanks
Awesome.
again.